Hey everybody, how are you today? I am super excited because I think a lot of you have been waiting for this video on how to build your ventilation system. I just finished mine and it has been game changing. It's been amazing and I am about to show you how we did it. So do a complete overview of how we built my entire ventilation system. It is complicated, but I think you'll find this video totally illuminating on how you could do this, how there are some things that you can customize and do on your own. Once you understand what I did, I think you'll be able to apply it to your own studio. So without further ado, we're going to jump in with an overview of it first, and then I'm going to go over the plans. I had Rodger Weiss draw up some plans for the baffle boxes because I wasn't quite sure exactly how to design them, and I'm going to share those with you. Rodger Weiss, if you guys don't already know, is the author of the book that I always recommend, How to Build Your Home Studio Like the Pros. It's a great book. So anyways, trusted guy, he knew what he was talking about, and he really helped me out a lot with this design. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. All right, so I'm going to show you where the ventilation system is back here. I'm just going to open this door for our spare mechanical room. And what we have here, as you can see, is there's the ERV, and this looks like a crazy octopus. And then it comes down around. We've got our fresh air going in the top, and it's going down this massive, I'm going to go back a little bit so you can see better. This is our baffle box here. And then it comes in the bottom of the room on the other side. The exit air comes in through the top, way up there, kind of angles over, comes down through the baffle box, and then out the bottom here. I can give you a little better look at how this bottom area is. We use some putty just to keep it really tight. Oh, there's a little spider. And then comes up all the way up and over. You could probably make this more clean in your own design, and it comes in the ERV and then it crisscrosses out through the exit vent. So our intake vent, I believe, is this one coming up across all the way around and coming in this way. It goes diagonally across, out, up, and then in the fresh air intake area. So I want to show you guys how this thing looks like when you open it up. So we're just going to open this up quickly, and you can see sort of the mechanical workings up here. So as you can see, our fresh air is coming in the top. It's crossing down through the ERV and going out the bottom. The center filter here is really what does all the work. It heats and cools everything. Our exhaust air is coming in up there, coming through this bottom tube and going out through the outside. So pretty simple in nature. You clean this thing every 6 months, every 3 months you clean, just with a vacuum or something like that. And it's really not that much work to deal with it. Pretty simple unit, and highly recommend it. It's been working great. And I'm going to fire this up now so you can hear what it sounds like and how it works. So I'm going to close the door here. Now I want to say that light switch right there is actually turning on and off the ERV. So right now the ERV is off, which is really nice because you technically don't need it running if you're not in there, since it's just supplying fresh air. It's not really heating or cooling anything. So I like to keep it off when I'm not using the system. So just so you know, right now what you're hearing is not the ERV. That is actually my heater for this little room. Just a little space heater that's built into the wall. But I'm going to fire this thing on so you can hear the difference. I'm sitting on a squeaky chair, but we're just going to turn this guy on. You can hear it very subtly kick on. And it's just like a slight whooshing sound. These things shake a little bit. This is a really funky room with all these in here, but it's really not that loud. And just so you know, it's a Fan Tech. I highly recommend this one. And let's look at the exact model number. So there you go, Fantech SE704N. There you go. So just so you can hear now this is through my phone, but the microphone's pretty good. I turned off the other here just so you can hear, this is just the Fantech running. So I know a lot of people are worried about sound and stuff. I was worried about it too. It's very quiet. This is in a separate room next to your studio. It won't be a problem at all. All right, so I wanted to show you guys the exhaust hoods here. So you can see that one is currently blowing air from the studio out. You can feel it's a pretty solid amount of air flowing through there. And then on the other side of the building here, you want to keep these apart. We've got the air coming in. So two slightly different types of hoods, but those are what you want to put on the outside of your building. Those two like that. So now we're in the studio. It's very quiet in here. This is the moment you guys are probably waiting for, is hearing what does it actually sound like once the air is flowing through. So first I'm going to sit at this desk, which is where I do most of my mixing and producing and stuff. You can just listen. I can kind of hear it very, very faintly. I don't know if you can hear anything. I would say that my mini split is louder. If anything, I found that this actually has like a slighter lower frequency hum. But I'm gonna get really close so you can actually hear the airflow. And this is the air coming in. So right up to the vent. I'm gonna slowly move away. And right about here, I really can't hear it. And then you've got the vent that's taking out air up there. So your exit vent at the top. And, you know, if I could do it again, I think I would put these, not where I mix, it's just the way of the design. I might have put it over on this wall by the door over here and created an entryway and like a mechanical closet on the entryway. Or on the very back wall near my mini split, I might have put them over here or something like that. So keep that in mind as you do your design. All right, everybody. So now we're going to take a slightly different approach. I want to show you the actual plans that Rod gave me. For someone who isn't an engineer, someone who never really studied this, I did a little architecture in college, but it was like 2 semesters or something like that. So this was a little bit funky to read. So I'm just going to show you to start with, you know, this top box up here. Let's take a closer look at it. So if you can see here, we have 6 feet, 6 7/8 inches long, and then 2 feet, 2.5 inches wide. The depth of this bad boy is 1 foot, 1.5 inches across. So the idea is fairly simple. You're creating these baffles. The air is coming in through a 6-inch saddle tap on flat with end crimp to accept flex duct. Nothing too crazy there. Just get something that can get 6 inches in there, attach it with screws. We're using 3/4 inch plywood the whole way around, 3/4 inch plywood baffle. So that's what these guys are. That's what all this box is. And then this cross-hatching here is John Manville Permacoat Lin Acoustics R300 duct liner, typical of all interior surfaces. So that stuff was pretty hard to find. I actually had to call around a bit and special order it. A warehouse here in Nashville that services special acoustic treatment for HVAC stuff. It's a little expensive too. I think I spent about $500 on all the insulation, but I actually got a little too much. So I think I got 5 panels, and they're like 8 foot by 4 foot panels. So maybe you get 4 of those and you'll be okay. So 1.5 inches is the width of that too. So that's what you're gonna put all the way around this whole surface here. And actually I'm noticing in this design here that he has these cut at a 45-degree angle, which is a good way to do it. We didn't do that, but that'll make it so that you never have any insulation showing. I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the build section of this. So we have this 1 foot and a 1/4 inch air gap that is essentially going to be going the entire way, 1 foot and a 1/4 inch now, all the way to the plywood there. So noticing these designs, this is how you're going to build your baffle box. And this will give you, adequate air for a space. My studio is 270 square feet as a room. So anything around that range, this system could work well. If you have slightly larger space or multiple rooms or things like that, you might even want to reach out to Rod, or I will make a video in the future that kind of goes into more of the math and science behind sizing these vents and getting the right airflow and things like that. That was one of the reasons I wanted to hire Rod, is I just wanted to be reassured that the airflow was going to be slow enough that I wouldn't hear it, and also that I was getting enough air to begin with to circulate through the room. So that was some more math and engineering than I really wanted to delve in on my own. So here's a side view of it. It's a little complicated. This gives you some of the same dimensions there. Now I want to take a quick look over here. Here's the system notes here. So provide 4 inch round MTL duct to the point of the party wall. The party wall is the wall between your mechanical room and your actual studio. So, and then it will transition to that 12 foot by 12 foot duct going into the actual studio, which is what we did. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that looks like in a second. You want to buy these Naylor Industries 12 foot by 12 foot model 71DH supply grill with a model 7145H return air grill mounted in the room. That's what those grills look like that I showed you earlier. And they're really easy to mount. Again, special order these, give yourself enough time to get them. Everything with this is so specialized that a lot of providers won't have them on hand. You got to call around for a supplier that sells the Naylor Industries and sells the Lin Acoustics Permacoat product. The Fantech Model SE704N is the ERV unit. Get it with all the required accessories. It just comes in a box. It's actually not too expensive. I think it was around, I want to say $500-$600, and shipped really quickly. So they were great to work with. And then duct unit through sidewalls for fresh air and exhaust using the Fantech COM 4P supply and exhaust hoods. So you can look those up on the Fantech website. And again, those came very quickly. Those are your supply and exhaust hoods, which I showed you previously in the overview on the outside of my building. And you want to make sure those are at least, I think it's 3 to 6 feet away from each other. It might even be 6 feet if you look at the diagram that they send you with the product. So this is all the technical stuff you'll need, and then you'll need to buy some more. You can get a lot of the plywood and the actual ductwork and these 6-inch saddles and things like that. You can get all of that at Home Depot, Lowe's, or any big box store wherever you are in the world. So this is the more specialized stuff. All right, so I just wanted to go over this plan with you so you could kind of see it more in depth. And I hope you enjoyed looking at this. Now let's take a look at the actual building of it and how it all came together in my studio. All right. So now that we've talked about the overview of what I've done and gone over the design, I just want to show you a little bit more of the details of what we actually did with the build process, because it was kind of funky. Like anything you build, I feel like there's always this sort of art and improvisation that happens. At least that's the way it's been with us. And on this design of the boxes, that's kind of what happened. So from the original design, we built it exactly like Rod had done, but to fit it in to the space we had in that extra shed area there, we had to really kind of tweak his plans a little bit. So one of the things that we did is we actually extended the box that has the ventilation air that's leaving the studio. We kind of made it go up and over the other box just so it fit in the shed area that I had there. So like I said, you can customize this however you want for your own studio. Just keeping the general idea of keeping those dimensions the same is really important so that you have that big space for air to flow through and slow down and also quiet it down with the insulation that's inside the box. So the boxes themselves, you saw in the design how to build it. We basically just used that 3/4 inch plywood, followed those designs, making sure there's always a 1 foot and a 1/4 inch air gap between all of the pathways that are going through the baffles there. And it's somewhat self-explanatory. Then what's kind of weird is when you're attaching the insulation, Rod had told me to use these things called stick pins, which are, I think, something that's used with insulation companies for attaching this material. Henry, my contractor, ended up kind of using them, I think, in the non-traditional way, which is totally fine. I'll have notes in the comments here on what those stick pins are and where you can get them. But to be honest, we didn't really use them correctly. So I think honestly using a screw and a washer, Henry did this in some cases here too, it would hold that insulation in place as well. And if you had some sort of adhesive, like some sort of industrial glue, you could also glue that to the back of the insulation to hold it against the box. So like I said, you can improvise a little bit here. There's no right or wrong way necessarily, just to make sure that that insulation is held up against the box and won't droop or fall or anything like that. The other thing to think about, and I think Henry figured this out the hard way, is that we found it was easier to put the insulation in where you left some room when you're putting the top of the box on, so that the top of the box just has one gigantic rectangular piece of insulation that you don't have to cut to fit in. That'll make more sense as you look at it here, but you can see there's a little gap so that the insulation, when they put the outside of the box on, it'll all just fit snug together. So those are little tips that I think might help you. He also used this special type of paint. I believe it's for ventilation systems, but just to cover some of the excess insulation side so that you're not breathing in some of that nasty fiberglass through your ventilation system. So any parts where the black coating, which actually covers the fiberglass, wasn't showing, we painted over that to make sure that it doesn't get into the air system. We actually did throw in on the intake air, the fresh air that's coming in, we did use a small little filter that's like a custom made filter that you can see right here that we just threw in the vent right before it enters the room. I experimented with having that in and out to see if it changed the sound at all, having too much resistance, and I couldn't notice a difference, so I decided to keep it in just to catch any particles that might be coming through. Next thing I would say is the transition from the baffle boxes through your wall is something you may have some worries about. That was one of my biggest worries, was trying to understand, well, how do you get through the wall? How do you make it so it doesn't touch? In the end, it's one of those things where you kind of break the rules. The baffle box opens up at the wall to a 1 foot by 1 foot opening, which I know some of you are dropping your jaw like, oh my God, that's massive. But the truth is that the soundproofing in this room actually improved because we ended up adding a lot of extra drywall, double layers of drywall green glue on that outside wall that wasn't there before. So my soundproofing, I believe, actually improved with putting two 1 foot by 1 foot holes in my wall. So just want to dispel any worries that you have. If you do this the way I did, you'll be just fine. So when you're punching through your wall here, you can see some video of Henry actually cutting through my wall and pulling out that massive 2 layers of drywall with green glue. And that was a scary moment when we put massive holes in our wall, but in the end, it worked out great. So you want to actually frame just with some pieces of wood through that wall. So you're going to create no gaps. Obviously, you don't want the air flowing into between the gaps in your 2 walls if you did a double wall system. So you're going to create a 1 by 1 foot entryway for the air to come into your room, and then you're using the special grates that we talked about earlier, the Naylor Industries grates, that you can just screw those right into the wall, and those will help also disperse the air evenly and quiet the air down. I think we also use some of that paint around the area where it enters through the wall, just so it's smooth and totally sealed up. So that's the general gist of how this all works. In the end, I was surprised it's not quite as complicated as I thought it was going to be. I mean, it makes sense in theory, and then you do it and you're like, oh yeah, this is great, this works. So I hope that this video has helped clear up some of the fears you may have around building your own ventilation system in your studio. I can't recommend enough that you do this. I will say, if you look right here, I have had a CO2 monitor in my studio the entire time. And now my studio stays in that 400 to 500 parts per million range, which is close to atmospheric pressure outside. And back when I didn't have a ventilation system, it would shoot up to anywhere from 1,500 all the way up to 2,500, 3,000 parts per million when we had like 2 or 3 people in here. So just so you know, that can cause headaches, it can cause fatigues, maybe even some slight dizziness. I didn't notice it too much, but I will say that it feels better in here. I think I might have more energy, and just in general, it's nice knowing that I have fresh air circulating through my studio, especially, you know, with viruses and things like that happening as well in the world. So definitely do it. Can't recommend it enough. If you have questions or comments, please let me know below. If you want to learn more about soundproofing, please ask me. I make these videos every week. I have a free soundproofing course as well that is in the link below there. So definitely check that out if you want to dive deeper into your soundproofing journey and learn more about all this stuff. Until next week, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you later.